it's Rebecca Hefner, and welcome to another interview that we're having here on the Indie Audiobook Deals channel. And I am so excited because today we have a narrator with us. We have narrator Emma Faye. So welcome, Emma.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. We are so excited to learn more about you and to learn about your audiobooks. Um, so why don't you, to start out, for people who aren't familiar with your work, why don't you just tell me a little bit about how long you've been a narrator and how you became a narrator? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been narrating for about 4 years, a little over 4 years now. I came in before the pandemic. You'll hear a lot of narrators that came in during the
Sure.
pandemic, but I got in right before then, which was great. But I've been an actor my whole life. So I from California originally. I'm in Utah now, but I did the whole LA thing as a kid and have just loved performing my entire life. And then
Awesome.
when I moved to Utah about, I think it's been 14 years now, but it was a crazy journey coming out here. It just felt like the right thing to do. And I was still going to go full forward with performing, and things just didn't work out at all. And so I kind of put performance on the back burner for a while because nothing was working. And if you're in performing, and this is probably for any art out there, you get bit by that bug and you just can't stay away indefinitely.
It's
And
true.
so it's crazy. It's like a disease that never leaves, but it's a wonderful one.
It's a good disease.
um
It's okay to have.
Disease, yeah, right.
Exactly.
No, sometimes it's not. It's sometimes, there's some side effects that you don't love either, but it's
Right.
a great
Right.
thing. And so I'm an avid audiobook listener myself, and about 7 years ago I started to get back into the industry a little bit in community theater, and get going again with my acting. And it's like, oh, I just love this and I miss this. And I was commuting down to the theater that I was working at. It was about a 45-minute commute, and so I was listening to audiobooks the whole time. And it dawned on me one day that, oh my gosh, this is acting. Like, I don't know why it never
Absolutely.
occurred to me in the past, but it took a while for my brain to clue into that. And I was like, wow, I would love to do this. I could absolutely do this. My acting experience would fit right in. And so I took some voiceover classes here to learn, booth setup and those types of things, a microphone and using my voice. And then they kind of pushed me in the direction of ACX, to find some audiobook work. And I put some samples up. I auditioned for 3 books and I booked my third one, and it was a trilogy, and it was my favorite genre ever. And from there, I've been booked ever since. So it's
That's
been a wonderful journey. So
amazing.
now I
And
do it full time and still theater on the side, but yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And by the way, what's your favorite genre?
That is YA fantasy. I
Oh,
love a good young adult fantasy
I
book. So
mean,
yes,
that's a big genre, like
yeah,
Hunger
exactly. I mean,
Games.
everyone loves it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, like that's where it's at. That's
Yep.
great.
And there's plenty out there. So it's wonderful. And it's an honor to be able to bring those to life when I love them so much as a listener. So
Yeah, and how fantastic that you're doing it full time now. And I mean, it must be so well received because being a trained actor, I mean, you really are inhabiting these characters as your voice,
yes.
right?
Yeah. And that's the wonderful thing about audiobooks as opposed to being on stage or screen, is you get to play all the characters, which is
Yes.
probably the funnest part, because it's just, I mean, I would never get cast as, the evil male sorceress,
Right.
right? On stage. It just wouldn't work. Or the
Right.
unicorn or whatever.
Right.
I'm like, I get to be it all. It's awesome. So
Yeah, what a really cool transition. That's great. Yeah, very cool. And you also bring something to, so when authors are looking for a narrator, you can say, hey, I have this acting experience. So they know
yeah,
they're going to
yeah, it's
get
really
someone
helpful.
who's really experienced, which is great. That's awesome. So besides YA, which YA fantasy, which we all love, what are some
Yes.
other genres of books that you've narrated?
So I do just about every genre, but something that's a little bit unique about me as a narrator, as opposed to many of my fellow narrators, is I specialize in clean reads. So books that are free of explicit content. And that's explicit content in terms of language, sex, as well as like violence, drug use, all of those things. So just kind of under the umbrella of clean reads. I know some people hate that term, but it's a term that's used. So
yeah, the problem is that we've never come up with a good term for all of this stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I specialize in. So my tagline is the clean reads queen. So I do just about every genre, but I specialize in those. So aside from YA fantasy, I do a ton of sweet romance, naturally, because that fits in quite well.
Of course.
Which I love to do. They're super fun. Everything from contemporary to Western, anything in between, Regency, all the things. So I do a lot of sweet romance. And then this past year, I've found that I love nonfiction, which I was surprised by. I don't listen to much nonfiction myself as a reader because I like books to escape and not think about the real world.
Sure.
As narrating them, I've been asked to produce a number of them, and I've really, really enjoyed that. So I do a number of those as well.
That's great. That's great. And a lot of our listeners are multi-genre listeners. So I'll send out the emails for indie audiobook deals and people will reply back and say, oh, you had a great selection this week. You had some nonfiction and you had some fiction and you had some,
Nice.
It's nice that you're able to do nonfiction and fiction, fantasy and romance and all that stuff. So
I dabble in it all. So it's a lot of fun. My dream is to do a Christian suspense book. Like that's my bucket list because I love that as a listener because I like the clean as I'm listening as well. I don't like a lot of language or things myself. Yeah. So that's my bucket list genre. So
okay. So any authors watching or listening who write that genre or any future authors who are thinking about writing, reach out to Emma.
Any suspense that doesn't have explicit content. I'm all for it.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So tell me about do you do mostly solo narration? Have you done dual or duet narration? Like what's in your wheelhouse for different types of narration?
Yeah, I've never done a duet, but I do mostly solo. I've done dual and I've done a few as well. Similar to that multicast, but a little different. And so I really I like solo narration for the reason that I said I love being in books because I get to be all the characters.
Yeah, exactly. You want to play
a lot of fun. Exactly. I'm like, give them all to me. But a dual is also really fun, especially if you have a really strong dual narration partner to work with. And I worked with a number of good ones. What's really fun too is my husband actually dabbles in narration as well. And so we've been able to actually narrate a few books together, which is really fun. So we'll just go out to dinner and talk about all the different characters and figure out their voices together. And so that's really fun and makes it a lot easier to be consistent. So that's been fun.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then a few multicasts here and there, which are hard actually, because it's just your part and that's it. And it's like, oh, I want to. I mean, you read the whole thing, or you're familiar with the whole thing at least, and so you get that. But it's weird to only do just your lines.
Right. Especially for someone if you do a lot of solo narration and you're so used to doing all the characters, that is probably a little strange. You're kind of like isolated in that one character.
Exactly, and you're not even doing like the narration at that point either. Right. It's just the line, so it's like, okay, all right, okay, I gotta get into this.
Dialogue, wait, and dialogue.
So those can get complicated, but so I'd prefer solo, but dual's great with the right partner. So
awesome. And that's cool that your husband dabbles it. So now I'm imagining you narrating like one of the cowboy romances with your husband.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. We've done a couple romances together. It's great.
That is super awesome. I love that. All right. So this is a tough thing to answer. And if you're able to think of it, that's fine. And I know this is hard for us as authors too, because people always say, what's your favorite character to write? And I'm like, oh my God, that's like asking you to pick your favorite child. Right?
Exactly.
But if you could pick one character that you just really enjoyed narrating, tell me about that character, why you think that character would call to people and why you enjoyed it so much.
Oh, yes, that is super hard. I was trying to think of this because you had sent that question over. I'm like, okay, I gotta be prepared with this one. I gotta put a lot of thought in this. So the one that came to mind is I did a trilogy. It was a Dragon Shifter trilogy called Scales of Ash and Smoke, and the main girl, Kaida. I think she is one of my favorites that I've done. I felt connected to her. Like I felt like we were similar in a lot of ways. So that helped to really get into her character. But she's just so strong and just someone that you would want to know, you'd want to be friends with, and you'd want to be on her team. And she's a
Nice.
bit of a spitfire, and it just her journey, it's a whole trilogy. So her journey from being a slave to the dragons to being a leader of the dragons is just this beautiful journey to watch her grow throughout these 3 books. And it's a phenomenal story. But yeah, I think that's probably one of my absolute favorites that I've been able to
Yeah.
perform.
Oh,
So
that sounds really good. And yeah, it's listeners and readers, they love to see that character arc of the character growing
yeah.
over the whole series. So that sounds really good. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great
Nice.
series. And it was actually dual narrated with my husband. So
Oh, very cool. So
he,
yeah, so
yeah,
that's
so
of course. So it's a project with your hubby, and you've got this great
yeah,
character
yeah,
arc. So that's fantastic.
it was a fun one.
Awesome. So if we're new to you, if someone's listening or watching this and they're new to you, what is the one audiobook that they should start with from your catalog to really just get into it and start listening?
Yeah, I mean that depends on genre, what they like. Because I do so many different genres. If you like fantasy, YA fantasy, Scales of Ash and Smoke, I think is really up there. I just wrapped up another one last week. It'll be out in a few weeks, called Starlight, and that is a beautiful epic fantasy. It's 13 hours, so if you like to dig into a long audiobook, it's beautiful. Lots of magic, and the age-old fight between light and darkness, and it's really beautifully written. So that'll be out soon. So if you like fantasy, I'd say one of those two. If romance is your jam, like I said, I do like every type of sweet romance there is, whether it's contemporary or Christian or Western, or Regency. So I don't think you can go wrong if you like romance. Just any of them on my profile, you'd you'd enjoy. So
Nice.
yeah,
Okay, good. And we definitely have a lot of romance fans, at Indie Audiobook Deals. So
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
We have a lot to start with your catalog. So if people say, okay, great, I love this, I want to listen to one of Emma's books. Where's the best place to find you? Do you have a website? Are you on social media? Where can we find you?
Yes. Yep. I am on social media, Instagram, TikTok mostly. Instagram is Emma Faye Actor. TikTok is Emma Faye _VO. I also have a website, emmafay.narrates.com. Or you can just type me into the Audible search and
Very
show up.
cool. And for our authors watching, are you open to authors contacting you to inquire about narration?
Absolutely. I love working with indie authors. I do both indie work and publisher work, and they're both great. But one thing I love so much about working with the indie authors is that the passion that you have as an author about your story. And I love being able to talk to them about their
Yes.
characters and figure out who they are and just get so excited with them over these characters. So I love working with indie authors. So please feel
Awesome.
free to reach out if you have any clean reads.
Great. All right. So, authors, if you are watching or listening to this, make sure that you check out Emma and find her and reach out if you have an audiobook that you might possibly want her to narrate. And if you're one of our audiobook listeners, please make sure you check out Emma's books. I can't wait to listen. I mean, it sounds like, especially with your acting background, I'm super excited to
Thank you.
dive into your catalog.
Yeah.
um,
Awesome.
yeah, and thank you so much for coming on the channel and telling us about yourself. That's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Thank you. And thanks for all you do in the indie author space. I really appreciate everything that you do to help indie authors be successful.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. I love audiobooks myself. So I'm like, the more we can get audiobooks out there for everybody and
Yes.
help out narrators and authors and listeners, the better for everybody, right?
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank
All
you.
right. Thanks. Well, thanks everyone for watching. And to check out all of our current deals, just go to indieaudiobookdeals.com. We have lots of good deals right now and all the time. They're constantly updating. And thanks again to Emma. And I hope you guys have a great day and take care.